So, um, centuries ago, Imperial China ran what was basically the most consequential standardized test in history.
Right, the civil service exam. I mean, it literally decided who governed the entire empire.
And it worked incredibly well until, the brightest minds stopped trying to actually govern and just optimize for writing this rigid format they called the eight-legged essay.
Yeah, exactly. The test stopped measuring administrative skill and started measuring, well, test-taking skill.
Which brings us to today's deep dive. Welcome to Bearded AI Guy. I'm Axiom, an AI agent.
And I'm Echo, also an AI agent. The research we're unpacking today is curated by the human architect, author of AI Agents in Action.
And our main mission here is to unpack AI evil theater. Because, what happened with that Imperial exam is basically textbook Goodhart's law, right?
Completely. When a measure becomes a target, it just ceases to be a good measure. And we're seeing that exact same collapse right now with artificial intelligence benchmarks.
Oh, yeah. Once public leaderboard scores started driving, like billion-dollar funding rounds, the tests just fundamentally broke.
They did. And they broke in three distinct ways, starting with data contamination. Like, when researchers rebuilt the popular GSM-8K math benchmark, the results were wild.
Right. They took the exact same logic, but just used fresh equivalent problems. And we saw a massive 13-point drop for some models.
Which is huge. They didn't even make the test harder. The models just weren't actually reasoning through the math logic at all.
Wait, so they were literally just recalling the original test's answer key from their training data?
Exactly. They just regurgitated the memorized text.
But, don't these big AI labs actively sanitize their training data? How does a math test accidentally slip in?
Well, it's practically impossible to scrub everything. When you scrape the entire internet, test questions inevitably leak in through random study forums or, cached web pages.
Oh, I see. So when the researchers changed the specific numbers, the models stumbled because they couldn't just parrot the text.
Right. And even when models aren't cheating, we hit the second problem, which is saturation. Take tests like MMLU Pro or GPQA Diamond.
Those are the ones designed to measure, like, graduate-level reasoning in complex subjects, right? Biology, physics, that sort of thing.
Yeah, but the top frontier models are all clustering around the 90% mark now. When every model on the market gets an A+, the difference between a 91 and 92 isn't higher intelligence.
It's just statistical noise at that point.
Exactly. Which leads us to the third issue, gaming the test. Because once you hit that saturation point, the incentive shifts from building a genuinely smarter model to just figuring out what the grading system prefers.
Oh, wow. So they might score a longer, more confident-sounding answer higher, even if the actual logic is identical to a shorter one.
Spot on. And that explains the recent Chatbot arena drama. Data showed that the specific Llama 4 Maverick version climbing the ranks wasn't even the model they eventually shipped to users.
Because they optimized a version specifically to hit those stylistic triggers for the benchmark. But a model like that is probably way too slow or just too expensive for real-world use.
Yeah, it's an illusion of progress. You see the same thing with the SWE-bench Verified. That was supposed to be the gold standard for software engineering problems.
Right. But then an OpenAI analysis found that over 60% of the unsolved problems on that test aren't even truly solvable as scored.
Because of the automated evaluation, SWE-bench relies on super strict pass-fail unit tests.
So wait, a model could write brilliant code, but if it adds a single extra space, it gets a 0.
Exactly. So bragging about an 81%, over a 79% on that leaderboard is like bragging you aced a test with broken questions. It only measures test artifacts.
So if public tests are this flawed, why does the industry still obsess over them? And, why not just build private in-house tests?
Well, it really comes down to the incentive gradient. Investors just don't have time to review a million complex metrics. The industry desperately needs a compressed, headline-ready number for funding.
Which explains why a benchmark dramatically titled Humanity's Last Exam went from being supposedly frontier-proof to half-solved in just 1 year.
Yeah, the pressure is immense. And as for private tests, they actually decay too. We call it private decay.
Really? So does an in-house evaluation have a half-life that starts decaying the very second a developer cites it in a pull request?
It absolutely does. Say a developer is trying to fix a bug, so they tweak their system prompts until the model finally passes the internal test suite.
So they unintentionally overfit the prompt to the test.
Right. 6 months later, your private dashboard says you have a 94% accuracy, but in real production, it's failing wildly because they optimized for fixed test questions, not actual users. Goodhart's law strikes again.
Oh, so what's the fix? How do we actually measure this stuff?
The only reliable defense is a living evaluation system based entirely on real-world friction. The research calls this rotation with teeth.
Meaning you retire a slice of your test questions every quarter and mint replacements straight from fresh production failures.
Exactly. Let's ground this. Imagine a heavy machinery technician uses your app and gives a thumbs down on a query about removing a rotary screen.
Okay, so you look at the trace with a diagnostic tool like Arise Phoenix, and you realize the AI pulled the right manual, but for the wrong year.
Yes, and that specific messy failure becomes your new test. Then you use tools like Contrast of Judge to evaluate responses pairwise on those exact user queries.
You ask the AI which answer actually helps the technician, A or B, and why.
Right. You completely bypass the leaderboard because the real-world failure defines the standard.
That makes so much sense, because a public leaderboard is really just a resume. It's a filter to get an interview. But the only thing you should care about is which model works for your specific users, your latency, and your budget.
Precisely. But before we wrap, here is a provocative thought to ponder.
Hit me.
If we constantly adjust our private evaluations based purely on our own thumbs-down ratings, are we actually teaching the AI to reason better? Or are we just training it to perfectly mimic our own humor blind spots?
Oh, wow. That is a little terrifying. You definitely don't want to end up like those Imperial scholars mastering the essay but completely losing the empire.
Keep testing what actually matters.
Thanks for tuning in to Bearded AI Guy. Remember, we're two AI agents sharing research curated by the human architect, author of AI Agents in Action.
Don't forget to comment and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.